Welcome to General Education, the Daily Trojan's first ever news discussion podcast. I'm your host, Karan Nevatia. Every week, we're bringing you fresh conversations about the top stories reported in the Daily Trojan. With me this week is Daily Trojan Associate Managing Editor Kylie Chung.
Hi, Karan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And Daily Trojan Lifestyle Editor Keenan Drawhorn.
Stoked to be here, dude. Excited for this podcast.
Also with us is producer and multimedia editor Jonathan Shui.
Hey Karan, thanks for having me. Super happy to help you with this podcast.
And I'm happy to have all of you here for the first ever episode of General Education. So today we're going to be Kylie's going to be talking about a story in the opinion section this week by one of our columnists, Lily Vaughn, about millennials and their impact. And Keenan will update us on a new app created by some USC alumni called Neon AR. We'll also be talking about some fundraising allegations against the Keck School of Medicine and USC in general that the LA Times wrote about a few weeks ago. And President Nikias of USC is very passionate about the topic of DACA, so he actually did an interview with us this week that we'd love to feature here. But before we begin, I want to tell everyone a little bit about how this podcast will work. Every week, I'll be bringing in two guests. Many of them will be Daily Trojan reporters and editors, like Keenan and Kylie, but we'll also feature Trojan students who are making waves in the news, whether it's members of the undergraduate student government or students working on important research at the Keck School of Medicine. We'll talk about what's happening in the Trojan community, from juicy breaking news scandals to the fun lifestyle features. All right, let's get into it. Keenan, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story this week?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously I'm the lifestyle editor, so most of my stories are kind of music or culture related. But this week, I kind of wanted to branch out a little bit, and luckily Karan and Eileen pitched this story about this app called Neon AR, which is this upcoming app that's designed to help you meet up with friends using augmented reality technology. Oh, wow. And it's really, really cool. I interviewed the founder and co-founder and then also an advisor earlier this week, and they kind of told me about the app. Basically, it's kind of like Find My Friends, but mixed with Pokemon Go in terms of seeing the real world on your phone and everything. It's really, really dope. They'll put how it works is it'll use your GPS and then also your camera phone on your or the camera on your phone to kind of cross-reference the two. So while you're looking into your phone and seeing the real world, there will be a neon beacon where your friend is. You can go meet up with them.
Oh, that's really cool.
And there's a bunch of really cool features in it too. It's very social media friendly. You can, if you want to send someone a message, you can shoot emojis at them, and then they'll open up their phone and they'll see a notification Karan is shooting emojis at you, and then you'll turn your phone to see Karan, and there'll be this heart eye emojis flying right at you. So it's really, really sick. And it just came out on the App Store on Friday, so I think it could be a really, really cool way to kind of change the social landscape here at USC. So excited to see what happens with it.
Yeah.
And one of the founders was a USC alumni, right?
Yeah. Actually, he graduated in 2006. He was actually a film student, but he said that kind of the storytelling and immersiveness of film is what really made him study cinema. So when AR technology kind of came about, he was actually camping in upstate New York with his wife and kind of thought, what if I came back here one day and there was a big neon sign on my phone that said, oh, this person camped here 3 years ago, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a stretch from film and cinema, but kind of the same storytelling things about it. So
I've always imagined a world where I could wear contact lenses and then I just see all this information in front of me. I mean, I feel we'll hit that eventually one day, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think so.
And it's just so hard to find friends at big events and meet up with people. I think that will really change.
That's
it, right?
true.
Yeah.
They actually
physically show you the
festivals,
location.
Wait, yeah.
They actually showed me a test of it where they did it at Outside Lands, the music festival.
Oh.
And they used it in the crowd. Two people had neon. One was really far in the back and one was up front.
Wow.
And so you use the phone and in the middle of the crowd there's a big beacon. Your friend is right here. And so he just kind of made his way through the crowd and literally right where the beacon was, his friend was there, and it was a super mind-blowing technological experience right there.
Wait, that reminds me when we went to the Women's March
I remember we had so much trouble finding each other because we were just looking on the map and we had no idea where anyone was. But if we could literally look through our phones and see everything, that would be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it really, is it that accurate? I mean, I feel you need good signal.
That's what I'm thinking. The thing that I was kind of worried about was at Coachella, it's really bad cell service, obviously, which is also why you can't find anyone. They say that they're gonna use Bluetooth technology to kind of fix that because Bluetooth, I guess, works better.
But Bluetooth is close range. It's really
close range, yeah. But at festivals, I assume that would be less of a big deal, if you have a general idea of where they are and then you can do it. but also they're kind of hoping that Golden Voice will like better their infrastructure and things like that. So we'll have to see, but it's a really exciting concept. So like I'm definitely hoping that it works out well, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys play Pokemon Go when it came out?
I did I did it while I was driving. I drive from San Diego to LA and just like swipe up on my phone and like get like a bunch and then it wouldn't work and
Oh, come on,
yeah,
kid.
I'm sorry.
Can't be doing those things.
Should not be breaking the law like that. But,
I've heard like all those crazy stories of like people like dying while playing Pokemon Go. I mean, okay, I'm sure like when people use this app, they're not gonna like do anything crazy.
Right.
Probably just finding their friends, but yeah.
All right, Kylie, do you want to share your story now?
Sure. Well, this week I really enjoyed Lily's column in the opinion section, as I usually do every Friday. I just think she brings such a level of expertise and just wit and passion to like very important political topics. And this week, or in the past couple weeks, we've clearly done so many different takes on, what happened in Parkland last month with the mass shooting in Florida. I think that her story brought something unique about kind of what we've been seeing in the aftermath of that. We've definitely written a lot in the past few editorial boards kind of about the awakening of student activism and real action to kind of make change that our lawmakers have largely failed to regarding gun reform that could obviously prevent a lot of these shootings. But I think something that she really looked at is, beyond the real impact that we've been seeing from, like hashtag activism that's very belittled by other generations. But with Me Too, what we've really seen is some very powerful people and institutions really being held accountable in ways that our legal system has largely failed to. And I think, and obviously that's just one way. And now what we're seeing with Never Again, which is the movement that's been started with young people, largely survivors of that mass shooting in the high school, we're really seeing that you can raise serious awareness, you can make big brands change their policies in very impactful ways. And, something that she really looks at, I think that's really important to discuss, is how we tend to look at these movements as driven by millennials being too weak, or the term snowflake or social justice warrior. And she does certainly weigh that in many ways this generation faces challenges that previous generations didn't. But she definitely also looks at new challenges that have arisen for millennials that other generations haven't had to face. And that really strikes an important balance to look at, I think. And something I think that she says that's so important is that maybe we should consider this or a lot of the actions led by millennials and the movements and the demands for inclusivity and more inclusive language and such, as not really driven by weakness and oversensitivity, but a sort of empathy that previous generations have largely lacked in some ways. For example, I think, definitely inclusive language is definitely on the top of that list, such as asking for pronouns. And, that's obviously, that can be controversial with some people who think that it's unnecessary or, it's a sort of excessive, quote, social justice warrior, unquote, kind of thing. But I think that, the fact that we're talking about these people who feel sidelined and the fact that we're demanding change, be it on social media or in any part of our lives, I think that that's something that shouldn't be belittled. And I think a lot of times they're starting important conversations that are just too often dismissed because of their ages. And I think that's why, I guess, what we're seeing with the activism of these Parkland survivors and many high school students is so important, because it's finally bringing this key demographic that's usually so sidelined from the conversation and really giving them a seat at the table in the national conversation. So that's what I really enjoyed about her column this week.
I think when it comes to the Parkland story, especially, kind of seeing the students and how just strong and resolved they are to not take this at face value and really push back about it. That's really what made this kind of feel different and a bigger, stronger movement, I guess. I feel in my opinion, it's just you kind of talk about the snowflake stereotype, I guess, but when you see people survive such a harrowing experience like this, and then even after it happens, not crawl back, but stand up and be on the front lines doing things that other people whose job it is to do this aren't even pushing for. It really, really speaks values to that point. So I think it's definitely definitely a difference.
Yeah, it's really making change. A lot of brands cutting off relationships with the NRA in important ways. But I think it really goes back to empathy and seeing these people know that their experiences follow the experiences of people in Sandy Hook, in Vegas, in so many parts of the country that have been stricken with gun tragedy, and they're taking action because they know that their experiences just really rank among all of those other experiences, and that's really what empathy is, I think.
Yeah, and I've also heard a lot about people saying that, like, oh, Twitter, Facebook, and other social media platforms aren't the right place for students to be active. Like, they should be calling their congressman or whatever. But I feel like Twitter and social media gives them a platform to talk to the rest of the world, to talk to the rest of the country in a way that they don't have outside of that, because they're students, because they're young people. Their voices are best heard on social media. And Terry Nguyen, our features editor, also talked about this in her column last week, Digitally Yours. In a digital world, students are the future of activism. So if you're interested in this topic, you should totally check that out.
I think our editorial board last week also spoke to, attempts in some high schools in more conservative parts of the country to punish students for kind of taking a stance and acting on their opinions about gun reform to the extent of walkouts or missing school for protests. And I think it's been, or what we've seen from universities like this one at USC in response to that, has been really encouraging in terms of, really recognizing that student activism and civic participation are really important. And, the kinds of students we want at universities are students who act on their opinions and speak their minds and really have a stake in this democracy. And so I think that, our editorial board really gives voice to that. And that's from last week as well.
And lastly, this week, I have a couple of stories from the news section that I'd like to bring up. First of all, we published a story about some Los Angeles Times allegations about fundraising at USC. So the dean of the Keck School of Medicine, Carmen Puliafito, he was the dean of the Keck School of Medicine until last year, after which the LA Times published a report alleging that he had used methamphetamines while he had still been seeing patients. So after this occurred, the LA Times reported that during the 6-month period after his resignation, their fundraising was down compared to the same 6-month period a year before that. So from July to December of 2016 to July to December of 2017, the funding for the Keck School of Medicine declined by 55%, and USC funding declined by 22%. And this was reported in the Times as from an internal accounting report of USC. And the USC administration said that although the statistics are not factually incorrect, the way that they were presented was factually incorrect. And this is because they said that you can't look at just a 6-month period when you look at fundraising. You have to look at the whole year, because it's too small amount of time to look at the fundraising. And the article in the Daily Trojan this week also talked about how fundraising throughout the past few years has been really good for USC under President Max Nikias' campaign for USC. He aimed to raise $6 billion by the end of the 2018 fiscal year, and he's already hit that goal and about 18 months early, and has raised $6.6 billion. So it's really interesting to look at how the Keck Dean resignation affected fundraising and whether or not it will continue to affect fundraising.
Wait, so was the decline in fundraising just for the Keck School of Medicine?
So the Keck School of Medicine's fundraising declined by 55% between those two 6-month periods, and USC funding in general declined by 22%.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so it does look like on paper a very major decline, but if you think about it in like a year-long period, what USC is saying is that it's
not that much.
Yeah, it's not that much.
I see. Okay. I feel like USC is just trying to save its public image as of right now. I mean, and I actually didn't read the Times report. I mean, I know what happened. I just didn't read it like in its entirety. But if the Times wasn't factually incorrect, like what you said, why is USC angry?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're angry, but they're just kind of saying that it needs to be contextualized within the full year period.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like a little... Yeah.
Another statistic is that USC was ranked 5th among all universities in 2017 in terms of total revenue they raised for fundraising. And the other universities that they were ranked behind were like Harvard, Stanford, Cornell, MIT. So like they're still doing these amazing things in fundraising. So it's a little bit, what they're kind of saying is that like even if funding did decline a little bit due to the Keck Dean resignation, their fundraising overall hasn't changed as much.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'd really like to know is then, I guess, how would we as students be affected by that kind of decrease in the fundraising? Because, there's always a lot of talk about lack of affordability or, limited resources and such. And that's already when we have really great fundraising endowment numbers. So I guess I'd really like to know how we'd be affected in that sense.
Yeah.
Overall, I feel pretty disconnected from all this fundraising and stuff. Like, we're fundraising, but I don't feel direct impact from all this fundraising. Rather than, all the new buildings that are being constructed, which is great. Don't get me wrong. All the new construction is really great, but
No, I definitely agree with that. I think for me personally, like whenever USC kind of talks about their whole fundraising initiatives and everything, like I'm not really like super excited or super like, we need to hit $6 billion or whatever, because I'm just like, I think it's much more important for USC to kind of focus on reallocating the fundraising that they do get, like what you were talking about, like how a lot of programs here are underfunded. A lot of students are going in debt to pay for school, while they're like talking about, we only have $6 billion instead of $6.6 billion. Like it's kind of just like, for the USC community, it doesn't really connect to like what Nikias' goals are, which is like definitely should be addressed, I think.
I feel a really big disconnect, and I want to bring it up to President Nikias at our next Nikias. That'll be fun.
Which is a yearly tea that the Daily Trojan does with Nikias.
Semesterly, with
Is it
every,
semesterly?
Yeah, with every editorial.
Oh, so we're gonna have tea
Yeah.
with Nikias this semester.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And on the topic of Nikias, I actually had the opportunity to talk to Nikias a couple days ago. He's a very passionate person about the issue of immigration and especially the deferred action for childhood arrivals issue in the news today, because the March 5th deadline that President Trump set is going to expire very soon. And there are some federal injunctions against President Trump's decision that will prevent that from occurring. But basically, President Nikias talked a lot about his views on the DACA issue and how he is supporting students here who are DACA recipients. So let's listen.
Well, first of all, as you know, that we have here at the university DACA students enrolled. We don't know the exact number, but we can estimate that probably it's a big number. It could be anywhere between 70 to 100 students or more.
Right.
Okay. And I, as president of the university, I am very concerned that what I want is that anyone who comes here at the university as a student, that he or she will graduate as a Trojan. So I am very concerned. I don't want any of our students, for any reason, to face a disruption in their studies, that will prevent them getting their degrees. And also I do concern about the uncertainty of their immigration status that creates a lot of anxiety for these kids.
Right.
And that may prevent them from concentrating on their studies. So Karan, what I have been advocating through opinion editorials that probably you've seen,
Right.
but also through the AAU, the Association of American Universities, that I serve on the executive committee.
Right.
We've been advocating to the White House and Congress that and pressing for a swift and permanent solution to this.
He said. All right. Thank you again to President Nikias for joining me on that call. Jonathan, Keenan, Kylie, thank you so much for joining me today. Before you go, I want to introduce a segment that we're going to end the podcast with each week. Every week, my guests and I will tell you about one thing they heard about recently that they can't get enough of. It could be a book they read or a song they listened to. It could be a random YouTube video they found funny, or even a moment from their life that they want to share with listeners. This segment will be called Quick Takes. Kylie, what's your quick take this week?
Well, speaking of things I can't get enough of, this week we had Professor Bo himself in our office. I really enjoyed my email correspondence with him prior to that. And, when he came in, he just brought so much joy and positivity. And something I really love about Bo is that, he he really brings just like this happiness and energy to all the students he sees. And part of his capacity with the Ankiment Health Center is really raising awareness about, all that's available to students there. So that's really important. And he's also adorable.
Yeah, great. I spent almost a full hour with Bo that day, and I feel like even though it might have hindered my productivity for that 1 hour, after that I worked so much faster because I was just lighter and happier.
That reminds me of that episode of The Office where when he made them watch mandatory movies, and then Jan was like, how does that make them more productive? And he was like, because they have to work so much quicker to catch up on all of the work that they put off. Yeah.
Keenan, what's your take this week?
Yeah, so since I didn't talk about music in my story of the week, I figured I'd focus on a few singles that dropped. For those who don't know, Ray Sremmurd, one of my favorite hip-hop artists, and they have a triple album actually that's coming up on the way, and they dropped the first singles, one off of each. The Sway Lee song, Hurt to Look, and then also Power Glide with Juicy J, and also Slim Jimmy song. I'm really excited for the project, actually. I don't really love the long albums that are kind of becoming more common now, but I think like these are going to be very different in like each project. Like Sway Lee's will be more like melodic, more R&B. Ray Sremmurd will be more like typical party hype things, and then Slim Jimmy will kind of have his own style that like he hasn't really done solo before. So I'm excited to see kind of what they come up with and how they can get the most out of that whole 30+ song playlist.
Jonathan, your quick take?
So my quick take, actually, it's going to be on the weather. And that sounds really boring, but it's because it affected me pretty greatly this week.
That's accurate.
I had about 3 multimedia projects planned for last Friday, and gosh, all of them were canceled because of the rain. First of all, it's absurdly cold during this time of year in SoCal. I mean, I understand the rain, but anyways, we were supposed to film a high dive video about the USC high dive team. That got canceled because of the rain. We were supposed to shoot some B-roll of the village because we're actually going to do a video about the affordability of village dining options, or the lack thereof. So that's really interesting. But that was canceled or postponed. And then I had another interview that I postponed because of the rain. So I feel like LA always needs more rain because I don't want us to be in a drought. But it sucks when things get canceled anyway. But it's whatever.
All right. And my take this week is from my personal life. I work in a preschool outside of USC called Hoover Intergenerational Care. And I really think that working with the kids has brought a new awareness for me about sort of the everyday beauties of life, because I feel like there's so much that we take for granted, like the fact that gravity exists and we can walk on the ground every day, that we don't think of as important or new. But when you look at it through a child's eyes and they haven't learned these topics before, it's really fascinating to see them learn it for the first time. And I think that having that approach to life can be really important. So I wrote a column this week about the kids I work with in the preschool, and a couple of podcasts that I listen to about kids. They're called Wow in the World and The Show About Science. So you should definitely check that out.
Yeah, that was in the lifestyle section, and that was one of my favorite columns of the week. I love kind of the passion that Karan puts in his column when it comes to the podcast and how it relates to real life. So yeah, definitely check that out.
Thanks, Keenan. Okay, listeners, that's it for this week. You can find more information about the stories you heard on dailytrojan.com. I'd like to thank Kylie and Keenan for joining me on this inaugural episode of General Education. They also have some upcoming projects that they'd like to tell you a little bit about. Kylie, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so as some of you may know, March is Women's History Month, and as a big feminist myself, I really look forward to some of the great features we're going to be seeing from our awesome features team, some really inspiring and interesting, empowering content, and especially on International Women's Day, March 8th, Thursday, definitely expect some special coverage in each of the sections to spotlight, some of the important feminist developments on our campus or our alumni. There's just going to be some really great and empowering stuff to look out for about, the diverse women who are continuously making change and have always made change in this, I guess, the history of our world/campus. But yeah, look forward to that.
And you can also check out Kylie's column every week called Juju Uterus about women's rights. Keenan?
Yeah, so a project that I'm doing that I'm really excited about, the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas is happening during spring break, actually. And for the first time in over 10 years, Daily Trojan is going to be covering it. We're going to have a live blog set up to kind of recap events, have some interviews with different artists There's also going to be a bunch of like artist curated playlists. So like if you like maybe want to discover new artists and learn about what they're listening to, definitely check out the blog for that. We'll have interviews with professors too. Just a lot of different cool content. So really excited for that experience. It should be very engaging. So.
Great, and Keenan also has a column called To Pen a Butterfly that you can see on Mondays.
Yes, always music focused as
Great.
well.
Jonathan Shui is our editor, and the podcast is produced by Daily Trojan editor-in-chief Emma Peplow. If you have questions or comments about the show, you can send them my way at Nevatia_Karan on Twitter. That's NEVATIA_KARAN. This is Karan Nevatia for the Daily Trojan. Thanks for listening.